Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later, as right now we're going to sweep up with this little lot.
MX-IIT is a new version of X-Transbots Andras and is a seemingly more cartoon-accurate take on the Decepticon tracker known as Scourge. Accompanying this release, there are also new versions of the X-Transbots Swarm, Bane, Wrath, and Curse, all of whom are meant to represent Scourge's huntsmen, the Sweeps. Scourge first appears in the 1986 Transformers animated movie after he's created by Unicron out of the remains of damaged Decepticons from the Battle of Autobot City on Earth. The Sweeps are of course identical to Scourge in appearance, and possess no individual names and little in terms of distinct personalities of their own. Still, it'll be fun to see this little lot lined up in toy form today. That's especially true as X-Transbots have included a number of nods to the cartoon as well, meaning that although you're essentially getting the same toy 4 times over, there are at least a few small incentives to completing this set. Last thing before we begin, today's video comes courtesy of TF Source, so I'll put a link to their site in the video description as well. The plan for today is to give you my first impressions before getting a full photo review up on their blog soon.
So here are the Swarm and Andras in their individual boxes, and of course what you're seeing here is that actually, although there are 4 boxes, is two distinct sets of toys. I mean, you've got Andras himself, and then you've got the Swarm, which are packaged individually, but of course come as a 3-pack, as a set. And it's got to be said that I really like this packaging. I like the way that all 4 of these boxes kind of intertwine and kind of create this little diorama picture on the front. I think it looks fab. You know, fair play. The artwork itself is really, really nice, really cool. Slightly surprised that Andras himself kind of slots in, you know, kind of in the middle there, but it's not really a big problem at all, is it? It looks great. Also really like how when you turn these things to the side, they kind of have a kind of almost like an encyclopedic look to them, you know, like books on a shelf, and of course they've all got slight differences in the packaging, but they go together really, really nicely. And you know, it is just worth me mentioning before we get them cracked open that this is actually not my first go round on this set. I have had them before, the original versions, although I've parted ways with all of them except one now, but I did have the Swarm and Andras before, so it'll be really interesting to see what changes they've made today. After all, who's the reviewer that's going to check out 4 different versions of the same toy that he's already owned 4 times previously? Sixo! Right, and then there's absolute scenes here because it's just a real sight to behold what is going on with the, you know, these toys, all the different accessories. It's a lot, it's a lot. Right, so let's unpack what you get in the box with this lot, shall we? Well, firstly, of course, you get the toy itself, which requires just a small bit of adjustment, just flipping up those nacelles there, but that is Andras in his vehicle mode. And then, of course, if you go in on the Swarm, then you get the same toy 3 more times over as well. Absolutely ridiculous, but here they are. And yeah, full confession, when I got these guys, you know, just here, I made a mental note straight out of the box to think, right, I'll keep them in some sort of order so that I know which is which. And I've already forgotten. I'm not going to lie. You know, which one is Bane, which one is Curse, which one is Nurse? I don't even know. One of them I think is called Bath. I can't even remember at this stage, honestly. It's a bit like, you know, you see it in that game that people play in the park or whatever, where they kind of have the cups and they swivel around the cups, and which cup is the ball under? No one can even remember. It's a bit like that, honestly. You just kind of get these guys slightly out of order or whatever, and it's just impossible to tell them apart. So I'm not going to worry about it today. They've got mixed up already, what can I say? Now, of course, they do come with some identical accessories as well, including this gun, which you can see just here. It's the same across all 4 of them. It's got a little bit of silver paint there, a little bit of a red accent just there as well. Looks very, very nice overall. And it also comes in the same baggie with this little plastic piece as well, which is really weird because for the life of me, I cannot figure out what it's for. I don't recall that it came with the original set, and it doesn't seem to kind of plug into the gun in any way. It's not in the instructions either, so I'm a bit of a loss with that one. Now, with the full set, you will also get 4 of these flight stands as well, one with each of them, of course, and yeah, no, they're very kind of generic X-Transbots flight stands. They come with a lot of their toys, of course, well, those that require them anyway, and yeah, they're not bad, they're not bad. You can also put some of the weapons just on the side like that as well, so there's 2 ports as well, one also for Andras' Target Master, so that's a nice touch. Now, speaking of him, him. Here he is, of course, tiny little chap that he is, absolutely minuscule, but really, really like him. Very, very cool little figure. I mean, we'll delve into him properly in just a minute, but yeah, he's good. And then, of course, the Swarm all come with their own individual accessories as well. Just don't ask me at this point which one is for which, honestly. Now, this, of course, is, well, they're all intended to represent scenes from the cartoon, and specifically from the episode Ghost in the Machine, which is all about Starscream's ghost coming back and kind of haunting the Sweeps and getting them to do stuff, and yeah, all of that. Hijinks ensue, let's say that. And this is actually Unicron's eye, because Unicron features fairly heavily in that episode, and this is his eye just there, as you can see, kind of green, menacing eye. Very, very cool. It does come on a little display stand thingy, but actually it will just kind of unplug, just very simply like that. So you can take it off if indeed you want to. And actually, if you kind of turn it around, you'll see that there is this little port just here on the back, and that is for batteries, because it does have a little light up gimmick as well, and then the front of the eye actually lights up, although for some reason I cannot for the life of me figure out how to get that little hatch undone, so go figure. That's something to play around with later, I guess, when I've got more time. But anyway, the accessory itself is pretty cool. There's then a kind of similar piece, which is this, which is actually a transformation cog. And again, it's got, you know, a little stand, but it will come off if indeed you want. It's got some red paint and a little orange piece just here as well, so that's kind of nice. Now this is actually, in the cartoon anyway, this is Triptychon's transformation cog, because Unicron requires it, of course, to you know, get back to his old self. And you would think, wouldn't you, that, you know, a planet-sized transformer might require a larger transformation cog than that of a one that turns into a city. I don't know, it's the whole thing's a bit of a weird one, honestly. It's a weird episode, but it's here anyway. And then you get these clear plastic pieces, which are intended to represent Starscream himself, as if that wasn't clear just there. And these actually plug into, or on top of one of the sweeps anyway, and they're intended to represent Starscream actually possessing one of the sweeps as he does in the cartoon. So there you go, that's kind of fun. I kind of like how they've done that. So kind of reminds me of the similar piece actually from MP44 Convoy, you know, with the kind of Starscream, you know, intended to represent when he kind of dresses up as Prime or whatever, but a little bit different. Then of course you get a little range of character cards, all 4 of them, if indeed that's your jam, and a full set of instruction booklets as well, which is a little bit of a weird one because to my knowledge anyway, the Swarm is only available as a 3-pack, so you will just get sets of instructions over and over again, and they are completely reprinted, transformation, everything. So, but there are at least some individual pages around their accessories and things like that, so that's something. But then here is the old space boat himself. I don't know, is it a boat, spaceship, bar of soap? Who knows? Honestly, it's a bit of a bizarre alt mode, isn't it? But I do actually think they've done a pretty good job with kind of recreating it for, well, for all its ridiculous worth, let's say. Now, first things first, there is actually some landing gear on this guy, which just pulls out like so, and then 2 equivalent pieces on the back. And yeah, there you go, he's on his wheels. And does that help him with looking any less ridiculous? I don't think so necessarily, but you know, as I say, all credit to X-Transbots, because this is a really, really silly alt mode, let's be fair, but they've done, I think, a very good job at kind of recreating it very faithfully from the cartoon, bringing it into 3D form and actually kind of making it work, if anything. I mean, the overall shape here feels very kind of sleek. It looks really, really good. I mean, there's no part of this where I kind of look at it and think, that doesn't really work or anything like that. And actually the fit of it as well is very good. Considering how panel-tastic this is, all of this here, everything, is literally just made up of, you know, kind of a shell, if anything, of from the wings and bits of the robot mode. But actually it feels really, really solid. Like, it's all very nicely kind of tabbed together very securely. And it does, you know, it never feels like it's going to kind of collapse or fall apart or anything like that. It does feel really, really good in that regard. It is worth saying though that there are some areas like this where actually the panels don't, it's not so much that they don't line up, they do, they all sit flush, they all line up perfectly nicely, but it's just actually in the kind of the actual kind of cut of them, if anything, the shape of them, it just leaves a few little gaps like here as well. And it's, you know, it's not that I've done anything wrong, it's not that there's anything wrong with kind of how it fits together or anything like that, you know, it all snaps in very neatly. It's just that actually there are these little gaps in the design. So yeah, it's not too bad, it's absolutely fine, but if you go looking for it, it's there. And whilst some of it is hidden a bit better, there are also areas like this where the panel seams are just all too obvious. I mean, this is right on the side of the ship, and you get this kind of jagged teeth edge almost, and then this little line along there. So yeah, it does look a little bit jigsaw-y in parts. That said, I do think that it presents very well on the whole, and actually the paint job on here is really, really good. Very crisp and clean, you know, covered in a lot more paint than I think it was previously, particularly some of these areas on top, you know, whereas they may have been bare plastic, now you've clearly got a lot of paint. And in terms of deco change, much these bits are the kind of main difference. This is a much darker blue than it used to be. Actually, this section was lighter than the rest on the original, as we'll see. We'll do a comparison in just a minute. But I do think that on the whole, it shapes up very, very well. That said, I can see a slight bit of difference in some of the blues, like this here to here, these two panels. This one at the bottom, it doesn't look lighter to me. It's not even that. It's just that actually it looks less saturated than the top. So it's not bad, and actually you kind of have to go looking for it to see it again, but it is there. If you do go looking for it, you probably will see it. Design-wise though, this thing's pretty clean, and even like an underneath view, I think that looks exceptionally tidy. I mean, how much better do you want it to look from the underneath, right? I mean, if you're going to swoosh this thing around the living room or whatever, I'd be satisfied with that personally. And even this kind of back end here, where there is a little bit of robot bump going on. I mean, obviously these are his arms just there, and then of course you can see the head, but that is accurate to the animation, so no marks off there. But yeah, even this I think is okay actually. I mean, yes, those are arms folded in, but it works. I don't know, it works to my eye. I don't mind that at all. I feel like it's okay. I really love this little kind of box here as well, which is made up of his cowl from the back of his neck. I think that's excellent. And of course you get these 3 nacelles on top, which work really, really well again, and that looks good. What I will say is that they do have a little light up gimmick to them. So you can see there's this little switch on top, which if you turn it on, all 3 of them will have a little red LED in them, so that's kind of cool. And the only thing with it is that there are screw holes on the other side, and the screws involved, and there's 3 of them in each, and it's just really, really fiddly, if I'm being honest. You know what I mean? I did attempt it on my original set, and it's not a process I want to do again, if I'm being completely upfront. So you'll just have to imagine it for today. Do you know what I mean? But one thing I will say is that actually these pieces on the back, these little spikes, they will unclip, but like so, but they actually sit a lot tighter in there than on the old version. This was a real bugbear of mine on the old toy, that these pieces just fell out like all the time. You couldn't transform it without these pieces coming out, and actually here they feel much more secure, so I'm pleased with that. I also think this top nacelle just here, which of course is the head, sits quite flush actually, which is nice. You kind of need it to, if anything, so that it sits sort of parallel with the other two. You can see those screw holes just there that I mentioned as well. That is a little bit unsightly, but a bit unforgiving if anything, but it's a thing. Anyway, yeah, that does sit quite flush there, so that's good. That's something. So yeah, on the whole, I got a lot of love for this vehicle mode. Do you know what I mean? It does kind of roll as well, so all good fun, all good fun. But yeah, I think they've done a good job with it. I really like the look of it. And then of course you've got the same toy 3 more times over if you get the Swarm, and it's just a bit bonkers really, isn't it? So no, I will say that actually these guys, they're all interchangeable, all very identical to Andras. But you can kind of tell which is which from some little quirks. I mean, first thing here, you can see on this dude, for example, the head doesn't really sit flush. Do you know what I mean? It has a sort of propensity for bouncing backwards a little bit, and that is annoying because then it doesn't sit parallel with these other 2 nacelles just there. I have kind of jimmied around with it a little bit to try and get it to sit just like that, and it will not stay. I'm kind of hoping that it's one of those little quirks that maybe irons itself out through transformation. Sometimes those things kind of correct themselves almost, but we'll see. Otherwise, actually, this one, I will just say that one sits very flush. That's probably the best of all 4 actually, and this one's not too bad either, but this one, yeah, a little bit sticky outy there. And then some of the panel gaps are better on some of these guys than others. I think this actually is the best overall. And maybe this guy's the worst offender actually, so I'm not having much luck with this guy overall. I mean, it's not bad on any of them, it's just, you can kind of see little differences like that. But generally speaking, I mean, I'm really looking for stuff now, and they are very uniform toys. Identical, really. Well, apart from one of them that's missing a little bit of landing gear just here, unfortunately. You can see that it's supposed to have 2 wheels, one either side, as I've already shown you, and yeah, you can see there he's missing one of them. I did think that maybe it got inside and might be rattling around, but I've had a little look and it doesn't appear to be, so it's just missing, which is annoying. I mean, it's not the end of the world, I guess, in the respect that, it's this dude here, and you can see that he does still stand very stably, so that's something, I guess. It's one of those, do you know what I mean? I'm going to not think about it too much, probably. And this is Andras, and you can just see there, all 4 of them together, just to really show you, yes, they are identical. Do you know what I mean? So, is this what you want in your display? I think it's certainly imposing, do you know what I mean? Just seeing all 4 of them lined up like that. One thing that has always occurred to me, of course, and it did before, is that you can just really get the 3-pack, do you know what I mean? And have one of them as Scourge, if indeed you want to, with 2 sweeps. I mean, that may be an option for some of you if you don't really fancy having all 4 of them. Now, there are a few gimmicks with these alt modes as well. The first being these flight stands that we've already talked about. So there's a little peg just here that goes into this corresponding kind of peg hole just there. And you can see how that looks. It works perfectly well. I say that, apart from this, which is just, if you even so much as knock it or anything, The wobble going on, my word, it's like jelly on a plate. Honestly, it just seems to go on forever. So getting this guy steady for the camera or anything like that is it's an interesting one. Do you know what I mean? They're not my favourite flight stands, I suppose, if I'm being honest. Like, they're perfectly serviceable, but I prefer using my own, to be honest. But it is kind of neat how you can put the little guns there as well, as I say. Alternatively, with that gun, if you do prefer, then you can actually mount it just here on the top of the vehicle mode itself. And yeah, he's going to wobble a little bit more, there you go. But that looks kind of cool, actually. I really kind of dig how that looks. Adds a bit of extra armament to the vehicle mode. Or should you prefer, then there is actually a cheeky bit of weapon storage inside here as well. Now, the first thing you want to do is just slide this little panel open at the side or out like that, and that allows you to open this bottom panel, which can be a little bit fiddly. There you go, just got to kind of unhook it like so, and then that just folds out and reveals all his kind of inner robot workings. And then you take the gun and it just pegs into this little hole just there. And it's quite a neat little thing, actually. It just kind of slots in like so. And then obviously you can just go ahead and close it all up again. And again, this can be a little bit fiddly just to get these panels kind of lined up just so. But once you do it, it's very effective. There we go. And then just plug that little bit in at the side again, and Bob's your uncle. And then another thing you can do is actually just pull this head up straight up like so. It's very, very stiff. It's unlike a little pole. But it will just come all the way up like so and kind of sit in place with his robot mode head extended. And yeah, you know, it looks a little bit ridiculous, but it's obviously a callback to the on-screen animation, particularly the 86 movie. You know, Scourge himself does that quite a lot. I think it's never really kind of made clear, but I always kind of thought it was to kind of distinguish himself a little bit from the sweeps, you know, to kind of show, hey, I'm the one in charge because I can pop my head out. I don't know if the other guys can do it as well. They never seem to, but there you go.
I heard you were talking
All of which brings us onto this little guy, which is Fracas, as I've already mentioned, and I really, really like him. He's very cool. As Masterpiece-style target masters go, I think he's kind of in one of my favourites. We'll do some comparisons in just a moment, but he's very detailed and super articulated as well. I think they've done an excellent job with him overall. I mean, I just love his grumpy little head on here. Honestly, it looks great, and it's worth mentioning that considering how small this thing is, they've done an excellent job with that red and yellow paint on there. It looks fabulous. I mean, he's a very poseable little chap, as I say. He's got a little bit of head articulation going on, so that's good. He's then got ball joints at the shoulders and actually a little hinge as well on a pin, so that's good. He's got double hinged elbows like so they go all the way up. No hand articulation of any kind, but that's fine. No waist swivel either, but then he does have ball jointed hips and ball jointed knees, and the knees are really where you kind of get the most of the articulation, because that's just super posable thanks to the transformation. And then he does have some feet articulation as well. All of which means that, yeah, he can really rock a pose. And actually, I think he puts to shame a lot of similarly sized bots. You know how sometimes these things can be a little bit over-engineered or way too fiddly. This guy hangs together really nicely. And yes, he does have a lot of joints, but it all works supremely well. I dig it. And we are going to do some comparisons with the original toy today as well. And here you've got the new version just here with the kind of lighter grey plastic. And then this version on the left is the old one. And you can see that there's really not a lot in it, actually. I mean, they are very similar. You'd struggle to tell them apart. The one on the left, the old one, is darker in the grey. So that's the kind of major difference between these two. And actually the face, the red, is not quite as vibrant either. So I will say actually the joints on the new one feel infinitely superior, much tighter. I never really kind of thought it was a problem on the old one, but actually by comparison, I'd take the new one any day, personally. And then let's do a similar comparison with this guy, who is the Target Master, who comes with FansToys Quietus. And you can see that actually height-wise, they stack up pretty well. I mean, actually the X-Transbots version is taller, but you know, it's not so bad, it would work. But I do think that this little dude is way better as well, way better. I've always thought that FansToys Target Masters, there's just something about them. They just look so generic and kind of blocky and just not very interesting. Like, it's a real weakness of those FansToys products for me. Do you know what I mean? Because it's, I don't know, they're obviously really nice toys altogether, but then the Target Masters, the little guys, just kind of let them down a little bit. The Headmasters actually are fine, I will say. But I do think X-Transbots have done a better job with this one. And then here's an interesting comparison, because this is the little Target Master here on the left that comes with Masterpiece Artfire. And boy, it's a really lovely thing. Now, what's interesting about this is that actually on the original Generation 1 toy, that Target Master, who bizarrely was known as Nightstick, which is Cyclonus's, the name of Cyclonus's Target Master, but Artfire's Nightstick was a reuse of the original Fracas mold from G1 Scourge. Are you still following me at this point? I don't even know. But yeah, basically these guys, these two independent characters came from the same toy. They were identical toys. And here you can see that, of course, actually what we've got is Takara Tomy and X-Transbots interpretation of that same G1 toy in Masterpiece style. And there you can see actually where the similarities lie, of course, in the design. But actually I will say I would definitely give this round to Takara Tomy here, because this little thing for me sets the standard for these little Target Masters. It's just beautiful in terms of how it transforms, how it articulates. I really like what X-Transbots have done, but personally the Takara Tomy one is better, I'm afraid to say. And then as a final way of comparison, of course, here you've got him with a couple of the Masterpiece humans that we've got on offer. This is the one that comes with MP21 Bumblebee in the exosuit. Is it Spike? Is it Daniel? You know, there is an official answer, but really it could be either of them. Honestly, it's so indistinguishable. A lot of people refer to it as Spaniel, which I'm sure is, you know, a little bit amusing. And then of course you've got little Daniel just here. Yeah, no, I think, well, the height of these guys is all over the shop, realistically, isn't it? And then you've got two versions of Spike. You've got the one that comes with MP Hound, which is significantly larger than the one that comes with MP44. So does this work? I don't know. It doesn't not work. And then of course the real draw with this guy, pardon the pun, is that he can transform into a gun as well in a bit of a shock twist. So you just want to kind of pull the little barrel out behind his head and then fold that whole piece up like so. And then actually his crotch piece, kind of an ab crunch if you will, which I didn't mention earlier, kind of folds forward like that as well, and that just reveals the trigger on his bum. Now the arms basically stay where they are, but then these legs kind of fold forward at the knees. It's really very simple, just in place like that, and then fold the feet and ankles forward as well, and then you just want to do the same obviously on the other side like that, and then they just kind of meet in the middle and they will tab. It's obviously a very small little thing, but they will kind of tab together. There we are. I'm just going to get lined up properly if you can. There we go, just in the middle like that. And then there is actually room to tab the hands, the robot mode hands, onto, it's come apart now, but onto the bottom of the legs. There we go, get it back in. Just like so. And that kind of secures everything, roughly anyway, into a little gun form. Of course, we've missed the most important piece of all, which is extending the barrel. And then you can see him here in gun mode. And of course, as you can see here, you can mount him on top of Andras, or indeed any of the sweeps, if you prefer. But yeah, no, I think he's all right. He's all right. He's not the cleanest in gun mode. I mean, a little bit too obvious head just here, I think, in my opinion. But and the legs are kind of, you know, very obviously kind of folded up on top. But it works. He's not too bad. Do you know what I mean? I just think, you know, compared to the official version, the Artfire version just here, I know which one I prefer, I have to say, and that's this guy. And I just think he's cleaner, the transformation's much more satisfying, it all kind of clicks together really nicely and kind of hangs together a bit better as well. He's definitely got him beat, in my opinion. But I will also say that the kind of fat barrel on this looks a bit weird, but it's okay, honestly, it's good. So anyway, that's your lot in terms of gimmicks for the alt mode anyway, but still just kind of stepping back and having a look at all four of these lads lined up together. It is a really impressive sight. You know, I do generally think that they've done a very nice job with this alt mode, as I've already kind of mentioned. And yeah, it's definitely a thing. Do you know what I mean? Looking at them all together, it's certainly a thing. A real space eater as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just, you know, where are you going to display this? Realistically, do you have room for this kind of thing at home? I don't know. I certainly don't. It's got to be said, but still, it's fun to see it nonetheless. Let's do some more comparisons anyway, and just for a bit of a size thing, here you go with KFC Ditka. This is the retail version. Some of you may know I have the prototype as well, but may have recently acquired this one, so you may be seeing some pictures of that soon. Anyway, here they are together, and you can see that actually size-wise, they're about the same. Like obviously Andras is a little bit longer, but yeah, he's a sizable thing, big old thing, just like Ditka. Then here he is with a fairly typical Masterpiece car. This is of course MP25 tracks, and again, just kind of showing off the size of it. He's a big old thing, isn't he? But then I feel like this is a comparison that a lot of people will want to see. This is with FansToys Quietus. This is actually the repainted version of Quietus as well, in order to make him a slightly different color. And yeah, you can see actually I think they shape up really nicely together. Although they are, you know, different figures from different third-party companies, I don't know, there's something about it that really, really works. And obviously with no FansToys Scourge yet on the way, they have kind of teased it once upon a time, like a silhouette teaser or whatever. But, you know, it could be a good long while before it materializes. How are people feeling about that? Are you likely to go in on this as your duo, or will you hold out for FansToys? If FansToys were to do the sweeps as well, is that going to tempt you to get, like, you know, 4 versions of theirs if that's what they end up doing. You know, I don't know. It's just all madness really, isn't it? But at least these two together I think work pretty well. And then of course here we get to the real nuts and bolts of everything with a comparison with the original version, which is this one here, for the avoidance of any doubt. This is the new one here, the T version, repainted version. This is the original. And you can see immediately, I'm sure, some of the deco changes that have gone on. I mean, as I said earlier, the most obvious bit is this blue just here, which now is significantly darker on the new version. And actually, you know, where this is a real kind of highlight, if anything, now it's the other way. You know what I mean? It's darker than the other sections that you see there. This blue on the main body is noticeably darker as well. I feel like this blue here is slightly changed, although it's almost imperceptible. Like if you didn't see it in hand, you really wouldn't notice the difference. But this, generally speaking, this has a nicer painted finish as well. So it does feel just that like slight bit more premium maybe. I mean, it's you know, it's negligible. Like you wouldn't necessarily, you know, sit up and notice it immediately, but it does feel like that a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Just nice paint on this one, I suppose. And yeah, darker blue on some of the nacelles and other areas like that. I mean, it's not so stunningly different, but it is apparent in hand quite clearly. Really though, I feel like some of those deco changes are going to be all the more obvious in robot mode. So with that said, let's get him transformed up and the Swarm as well, and we'll take a look at them in that configuration. Right, here we go, that's transformation done. And first thing to note is that I got mixed up again. I don't know how it happened, but the one that I thought was Andras was not Andras. So the one that I was transforming this whole time thinking, oh, I may have got the sweeps mixed up, but I know that I've definitely got Andras in the right order. It was not him. So I don't know, man. I don't really want to tell you, but this, as far as I'm aware, this one here at the front is Andras, and I know that from the face sculpts. That's really the only way to tell them apart. Otherwise, they're entirely identical. So, hey ho. Anyway, identification issues aside, I think that transformation's all right. Actually, I think that it's a funny one because on the previous version of this toy, it was kind of 95% absolutely fine, and then it was the feet that really kind of killed it for a lot of people. And you know, I know many people that have handled this toy that will say, hey, I really liked it, but the feet are horrible. You know, it's like a common criticism. So actually here, they've changed things up a little bit because they have redesigned the feet a little bit anyway, not like shocking, it's not like completely different or anything like that, but they have tweaked it and it is easier. It's still like a little bit, you know, it's kind of a bit of a clearance thing going on when you kind of have to force the foot through the little kind of hole in the back of the kind of heel area. But generally speaking, yeah, a lot easier. I mean, really, the only kind of tedium of it comes from doing it 4 times over. There's no process really in this world when it comes to transforming toys that can necessarily be considered enjoyable when you're doing it repetitively like that. I mean, again, it helps that actually it's a relatively simple conversion. There's nothing too challenging there. Everything slides together nicely, it all kind of clicks into place nicely. I think they've done a good job with it. I think they've made this about as enjoyable as it possibly could be, transforming 4 of the same toy in Masterpiece form, you know, 4 times over. I think it's, as I say, it's about as good as it could be. And what a result. I mean, just look at these guys. They actually look fantastic together. I think if you're in the market for a set of Masterpiece styled sweeps, well, this is your only option in it, so you've got to go with these guys. But seriously, it does look really, really nice. I like the new color scheme quite a lot, actually. I mean, it's significantly darker. So really, I mean, it's, you know, horses for courses, whichever you prefer, but we'll do a comparison in a minute. But yeah, I think they present really nicely, and they do look great as a set, definitely. Anyway, let's just focus in on Andras for a minute, or what I think is Andras. I mean, as I say, it doesn't really matter, does it? But I'm pretty sure by process of elimination that this is Andras. And I say that because of the facial expression. That's really the only way to tell the difference between these lads. And Andras himself has a kind of slightly open-mouthed expression. So we'll zoom in on that in just a minute. But yeah, even then, it's just a facial expression. It really doesn't matter. I mean, if you want to use one of the others as Scourge and have the other three as the sweeps, or just get the 3-pack if you want and have 2 sweeps and 1 Scourge. It really doesn't matter. It's your collection. Do what you want. But anyway, I think it looks great. I really think that they've done a great job with this robot mode. I mean, in terms of molding and everything else, I think it's entirely unchanged from the previous one. You know, still got the same hands and things like that. I thought they may have made a few more tweaks than actually they have. But I really like it. I think it's stunningly cartoon accurate for its, you know, for all it's worth. And we'll do a comparison of that with the animation model in a minute as well. I always like the way that these wings kind of fan out from the side, and the way that the cowl kind of works. I think they've done an excellent job of that. Really, really good. And you know, it's exceptionally clean. Like if we just turn him slightly to the side, you can see that, you know, although obviously, yes, there is kind of kibble and backpack and everything there, as there should be, because that is the animation model. That is kind of what you sign up for when you want a cartoon accurate Scourge. And you know, even from the back, again, I think it looks really, really good. It's not messy at all. I think great job. Now let's just get a load of that face sculpt, shall we? Because I do think it's pretty perfect. I think they've absolutely crushed it with that head sculpt. That's about as spot on to the animation model of Scourge that you're going to get, realistically. You know, beard, mustache, the kind of crooked nose, the eyebrows. It's excellent. I really can't say enough nice things about it. I think they've done an excellent job with it. The eyes do light up as well, along with the kind of nacelle on the top of his head. And yeah, you will have to install the batteries for that and all of that kind of clubber. It's a bit of a shame. I would say I'd mark them down slightly on that, only because I don't mind light up eyes, but except when, like in this case, they look dead when they're not turned on. And then I just think it detracts a little bit. Like personally, I'd rather just have them painted, but that's just me. But yeah, generally speaking, great job on the head sculpt. So here is face number 2. This is one of the sweeps anyway, and he's got closed mouth, this one. So that's, as I say, that's literally the difference, is his mouth is closed. That's the difference between this sweep and Andras. So there you go. That's the only difference. And then sweep number 2 has a slightly open mouth. Not quite as much as Andras, but certainly more than sweep number 1. So that, again, it's not much, but it is what it is. And then the final sweep, well, it's closed mouth again, but this one isn't frowning quite as much as the other closed mouth chap. So there's a little bit of variation with the eyebrows as well. And this guy's got more of a kind of neutral face, but again, closed mouth, that's the difference. Just going back to Andras and just looking at this nice smooth chest going on there, slightly flecked kind of finish going on. All looks really, really good. Love the colour, love the finish generally speaking, and yeah, I think it's turned out nice. Some little red highlights on areas such as the shoulders just there, just add a tiny little bit of colour, not too much, but there's a couple of red highlights and that look pretty good. And then you've got painted sections such as on the biceps just there, that all looks good. Kind of very cool robotic detailing on the inside of the wings just there, that all looks really, really nice. And kind of got like a sort of sprayed finish going on in there in terms of the paint. That looks good too. Then coming down to the legs, you've got some major difference here in terms of the deco being the silver paint that's on offer just here. That's a big change from the blue on the original, and you know, it's all to kind of bring it closer looking to certain frames or the animation or the animation model anyways. We'll talk about all of that in a bit. And it looks really good. The paint, generally speaking, is nice and crisp. I had a slight concern that maybe it might rub just a little bit here at the top, but it doesn't seem to have happened so far. But maybe, yeah, just want to pay attention to as you go. And then you've got these newly designed feet. Well, they're not really newly designed. I mean, I think that's definitely overstating it, just tweaked slightly. And they look good, except that they've got this annoying tendency to just kind of fold inward a bit like that and kind of not stand straight on the floor, which is super annoying. I mean, I think it's all to do, there we go, I've got it. It's all to do with the positioning of the heels. Because the heels are kind of independent to the front of the foot, you've all got to get it really lined up at the right specific angle to kind of have him standing straight. And it is possible to do it, it's just takes a bit of thought. I think that's all. You've got to really kind of get the feet aligned properly. Here's what I'm talking about, because you've got independent heel and the kind of the toes and everything here, and you almost need to make sure that you've got the whole thing, this piece, swung as far forward as it will go, kind of to there, and then fold down this bit and then fold that bit forward. That's kind of, I think, how you're supposed to have them, like so. and then obviously have the heel kind of balancing it. And I think if you have him too kind of flat-footed, you know, with this bit kind of spread out a little bit, he doesn't stand as stably. But with it like that, it works okay. And then just getting a close-up on the hands, and of course you've got these very garish pink fingernails, which I think look really, really cool. I love them. Someone always says, did Scourge really have pink fingernails? Yes, he did. That's in the cartoon, and so they've recreated it really nicely here. Not too keen on the hand design though. I do think we'll talk about the articulation more in a minute, but you know, just on the hands, they're super articulated, as you can see, full of joints, but just feel very, very flimsy. And you know, they've got these tiny little ball joints just there at the knuckles and on the thumb. I've already noticed stress marks on at least one of the thumbs on the 4 of these guys, and I don't know, man. I think there's such a thing as too much articulation, you know, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. I've long maintained that with some of these X-Transbots or KFC hands, and these just feel just not robust enough for me. Like, I worry about these fingers a little bit. I would rather have something less articulated but more robust, personally. Also, just want to talk about the elbows just a second before we do the full articulation. And you will often see people posing it like this, with this very visible gap just there. And in my experience, it looks way better to just kind of fold them up slightly like that, and it just kind of, I don't know, just smooths over that transition between the 2 parts of the arm a little bit better. Just to my eye anyway, that looks way, way better. You will still get a bit of a gap, obviously, if you know, these elbows will bend way past 90 because they're double jointed, and you will still get a bit of a visual gap just there, but at least it looks better like that. So we may as well do the rest of the articulation then, and of course you've got quite a bit at the head. I mean, it will swivel from side to side. It's slightly obstructed by the cowl, but it's not a major problem. You can actually move the cowl out of the way slightly if you really want to as well. But yeah, that does work, and it will tilt back and forth a little bit, at least, not much, but there you go. Shoulders are really, really nice and tight, and they click quite nicely when they move back and forth as well, and then there's a hinge to take them out to the side. You will get a bicep swivel, which is really, really good. Elbows we've talked about already, and then there is a wrist swivel, and of course those superposable fingers on the end. Now there is a waist swivel, very nice clicky one as well. Again, slightly impeded this time on account of the backpack, but it is there. Now taking a look at the legs, you know, you've got decent range of articulation at the hips, just like that, and decent forward as well. I mean, it doesn't go quite to 90 degrees because it's slightly impeded just by the front of the thigh, just there, but it's really not too bad. Nice tight joints at that point as well. Then taking a look at the knees, you get decent bend there, about 90 degrees, and this sort of knee pad will move as well if you really need it to, so that just kind of comes up like that. And then talking about the feet, we've already kind of looked at the heels and all of that, but you do also get a bit of ankle tilt and a bit of toe articulation as well. And you know, then you can actually pose the wings. I mean, they will kind of fan out slightly like so, or kind of hang back a little bit, however you want them to kind of go. You know, and they do stand really stably like that, which is really, really nice. Or, you know, kind of, you can even kind of cocoon them in a little bit. So, you know, they give you quite a few posing options. So, you know, overall, he's not like the most articulated bot, but he's got everything you need, you know. He poses pretty nicely, just got to kind of pay a bit of attention to those elbows maybe. But, you know, generally speaking, I think he's good. And having given all of them a bit of a once over and kind of posed them and the whatnot, you know, they all feel pretty solid and stable too. So actually, you know, I know sometimes X-Transbots, you know, people kind of raise their eyebrows a little bit, but you know, it feels all right, feels good. Now, of course, there are some gimmicks with this robot mode. The first being that you can put the guns into the hands, and I have had just now a little bit of, there we go, they kind of clip in really tightly. I was going to say I had a bit of a bother, but they're okay actually. Once they clip in, it's very, very secure. That's what I'll say. It's just kind of initially I wasn't sure if they were going to go. And then with Andras himself, of course, you can also put the Target Master in his hand. Now this is slightly weird in that you need to unpeg the Target Master arms just from these little pegs just there, as otherwise you won't be able to get it over the hand, and then you kind of have to fold the fingers in the middle. In the middle between the gun and the actual handle. There we go, just clipped in like that. So this is a little bit fiddly because then you've got to kind of fold the fingers in, get the thumb in just like so, and then you can reattach the hands on the Target Master. So yeah, just a bit fiddly. Nice look to it once it's all done though, and I think the Target Master in hand looks really, really good. This gun as well, I really like it. It's got a slightly visible screw on the side, which is maybe a little bit unfortunate, but generally speaking, it's all really good stuff. Now there are some other gimmicks on this guy as well, kind of integrated some of them. One of which is in his tummy, his little belly just here. If you kind of press on it just like that, you can see it opens slightly and then folds down to reveal this thing. And you know, if you're not familiar at all with the Generation 1 cartoon, you could be forgiven for thinking that it looks like dog duty, right? But it's not. It's actually the key to the plasma energy chamber, and it features in the final 3 episodes, The Rebirth, with all the headmasters and target masters, and it's yeah, as I say, it's the key to the plasma energy chamber, which is part of the big plot of that episode. And Scourge stores it away inside his little belly, just like that. So yeah, there you go. And then if we come up a bit, there is another gimmick with his chest, because this panel here actually clips open like so, and you can see it reveals some very nice little robotic detailing just there. Now, this bit is a bit fiddly, but you will kind of need to fold the head back a little bit. It probably works easier in vehicle mode, actually. You can do it in vehicle mode as well. And then I found that I had to use like a little tool to just, there we go, to just kind of get these panels to flip open slightly, because it really is exceptionally fiddly. There we go. And that will reveal a little chamber into which you can plonk a Matrix of Leadership, Masterpiece styled one anyway. Now, I do find this gimmick exceptionally fiddly altogether. There we go, just kind of got it in. And it will kind of slot into his chest. Now, you don't have to open the doors, you can just kind of plonk it in, and that's a lot easier. But actually opening those little doors, those little flaps to the side, enables you to then close it up again. And yeah, that is all a reference, all of that, to the episode The Burden Hardest to Bear, where Scourge steals the Matrix. He does kind of mutate in that episode as a result of having the Matrix in his chest, and kind of becomes this the kind of weird sort of blobbish creature, and obviously this toy does not do that. But you can get the Matrix in there, so that's kind of cool. Now, moving on to the sweeps and some of their gimmicks, of course, here you've got a couple of their things. You've got the Unicron eye and the Triptychon transformation cock just there, and yeah, they don't really do a whole lot, to be honest. I mean, obviously the Unicron eye will light up, so that is something, but realistically they're there more for display than anything. I mean, they can kind of hold them, as you can see here, but they're fairly inanimate objects, but still nice inclusions nonetheless. Now, coming on to the third sweep, and of course you've got those Starscream Ghost accessories, and they actually come with Curse, and I know that because it's in the instructions. But don't ask me if this is Curse or not, but it could be, I don't know. But yeah, you've got these set of wings, and they just kind of clip on the side like that. There's literally like a little peg hole just here. It's on all of them actually, so you could, you know, it really doesn't matter which one you put them onto. You just want to make sure that the wings, Scourge's wings, are folded as far back as they'll go, otherwise there's not much clearance for them. But then there's a little peg that just kind of clips in, and they go on like that. Then the next thing you want to do for the head part is you actually need to slide down the whole back assembly with the wings on it and everything. It slides up for transformation, and you need to slide it back down, and that will enable you to fold back the sides of the cowl just out of place, out of the way. There you go, a little bit of a cleaner look, and then that gives you enough room to bring in the little Starscream piece, which just kind of clips over his face. And this is not too bad actually. It just kind of clips in over the front here into place, and then you kind of want to bring the head forward to make sure that it kind of stays, and it just looks like like that. There you go. I'd actually missed that it wasn't quite clipped in on the side there, but I've got it in securely now, and well, I don't know, it actually looks pretty good. I like it. It's completely ridiculous. Is this something I'm going to use every day? No, but you know, for when I want to do a little photo homage to that particular episode, I'll have a bit of fun with it, sure. And it's, you know, it does look cool. It feels really good actually for translucent plastic. No concerns there. And, you know, it's a bit of fun in it. Let's have a little laugh with it. I mean, you know, as a nod to that one, that one episode, they've really gone to town with it on with these three guys, haven't they? And fair play, you know, I like it. They've done a good job with it. I think, you know, it's entirely ridiculous, but a bit of a laugh all the same. Realistically though, most of the fun here comes from seeing these guys all lined up together, and in that regard, it's a bit of a success, isn't it? I mean, there is an element of price with this, of course. You know, it's not the cheapest set. Do you know what I mean? I mean, for 4 Masterpiece-sized toys, I wouldn't say it's bad value, but at the same time, it is a big commitment for anybody, realistically, to go in on a full set like this. I mean, how badly do you need Masterpiece Sweeps, or is just Scourge enough? You know, it's an honest question that you have to ask yourself. I mean, certainly, looking at them, all 4 of them here, it is a bit of a delight. I won't lie and say, you know, oh, it's not that great. It does look really, really good. And for me, you know, I'm happy to have them, of course. But, you know, maybe the 3-pack, as I say, will be enough for some people. It's your choice. I mean, thinking about it, you know, for the box set, the 3 of them, this is what you get. You know, that's still pretty good, I think, for anybody's display, because they're not small things. You know, they do take up room. So, I guess what I'm saying is you know, unless you really need the particular variant of open-mouthed Andras that you get and the Target Master, you know, if you're not too fussed about those things, the 3-pack's pretty good. Now, in terms of comparisons, here he is with FansToys Quietus, standing in for Cyclonus. And of course, we've already seen his little Target Master dude, but here's the full thing. And I do think they work very, very well together. I really like how this looks. You know, obviously Quietus is a little bit taller, but actually not as tall in comparison to Andras as the actual X-Transbots Cyclonus, Elagos, which I sadly don't have in hand any longer to do a comparison of that one. I've sort of settled on Quietus there. But yeah, I think this works really well. And obviously, as I said earlier, with FansToys having teased a Scourge, but that not really kind of having emerged just yet. I mean, it might be a while, you know, a little way off. I think this is a really good option. I think certainly for my money, I'm happy with how that looks. And there's a little bit of difference in the style of the Target Masters, but otherwise, it's good. It works for me. I mean, honestly, for two toys from different companies to mesh this well together, it doesn't happen all that often. Do you know what I mean? You can put a lot of third-party stuff together in one on one shelf, and you might be able to tell stylistically the differences or whatever else. These two, you know, other than the fact that there's a lot more die-cast in Quietus, I really don't think it makes all that much difference. Do you know what I mean? Stylistically, all of that, they mesh very, very well together, I think. I'd say the same is true with FansToys Sovereign as well. And of course, you know, it's another FansToys product. I'm sure they'll get around to Scourge eventually, to be fair. But, you know, I do think in the meantime, this works very well to my eye. This is actually the M version of Sovereign. That, again, it's the kind of repainted version. But, you know, I really like how that looks. Colors, the kind of shine on them, everything. It's good for me. Here you have him with a couple more Masterpiece style toys. You've got FansToys again with Thomas, their Astro Train, and there you've got Masterpiece Soundwave MP13. And yeah, about the same height as both of them, give or take a little bit. And wow, really nice lineup. I'm absolutely loving how that looks. And then here's a little comparison with a couple of Headmasters, you know, if you're kind of going for a bit of a kind of rebirth effect. And you know, this is actually, well, both of these are from FansToys as well. You've got Lupus, their Weird Wolf, and Dracula, their Mind Wipe. When are they going to do that Skull Cruncher? Just get on with it already. Can't wait for that one. So, but I think, again, this works really, really well. And, you know, it's just another example of cross third-party figures all looking very, very good together. And then the same is true of these guys. These are the KFC Horicons. You've got Snapdragon and Apeface, which is King Zilla and King Gorilla. And yeah, again, they look really, really good together. And of course, KFC, kind of sister company of X-Transbots, but still, you know, technically different companies, technically. But it works really well, you know, really, really well. I like how that looks a lot. Here's another FansToys one for you, and this is Hydra, their 6-shot. And of course, he's very, very large, but again, looks really, really good. And then, of course, we've got a comparison with some Autobots. So we've got two unofficial, two official. So we've got FansToys Coot, their Cup, MP28 Hot Rod, FansToys Jabber, their Blur, and MP51 RC. And yeah, again, it's you know, a bit of a rebirth lineup, I guess. But I think it works very, very nicely. You know, height-wise, all of that, I think they gel pretty well. But then, of course, the kind of major comparison for today is with this fella, who is the original Andras. Well, actually, I tell a lie. It's not the original Andras. This is one of the Swarm. I forget which. Don't ask me which, as we've already ascertained. But yeah, I had this Swarm, and I had Andras. And then, you know, space being what it was at the time and all of that kind of stuff, I opted to part ways with 3 of them, but I actually chose to keep one of the Swarm in place of Andras, just because I prefer the closed mouth look. So there you go. But you can see a direct comparison of the color scheme anyway, much more vibrant blue on the older version, which is of course on the left, in case that has not been apparent, and much darker, and you know, particularly with those silver thighs on the right. And the thighs just here, you know, that is the kind of major difference on the new version, of course. Otherwise, the actual kind of theory of the color scheme is not that different, you know, just darker. And it's a really tough one for me because there are elements I like of both of them. You know, I like the silver thighs a lot and how that looks. And I do like the kind of contrast of on the new version of the dark versus the light, but I do really, really like the vibrant blue as well, the kind of more baby blue. On the original, I think it just maybe pops a little bit more, do you know what I mean? A bit more eye-catching. But certainly they both look really nice, and I do think that actually the joints, the tolerances, all of that kind of stuff feel a little bit improved on the new version. You know, it's got more paint as well, so it does feel and kind of look or present maybe just that little touch kind of more premium, or you know, just a little bit better. It's not night and day by any means, do you know what I mean? It's still kind of in the same ballpark, but you're getting a little something there. And then, of course, here we have a comparison with those two and Scourge from the cartoon. Do you know what I mean? And it's a tough one, isn't it, really? Because the color, if anything, is kind of almost somewhere in between. I guess it's one of those that's like a little bit up for debate, you know, which is correct and which is not. I kind of feel like, if anything, the old version is maybe too bright and the old one, and the new one, sorry, is too dark. Like, I definitely could have done without the new one being as dark as it is, you know, and a bit more kind of maybe of a rich blue. It's a really, really tough one for me. You know, but they have got the sculpt correct. I mean, I do think it's a great rendition, you know, the mold, all of that of Scourge. Maybe just the color scheme for me doesn't quite hit it. It's still really nice though. And of course it does have the silver thighs and all of that, which you can see from the cartoon. So in that regard, I suppose the new one maybe kind of veers into being slightly more accurate on the whole. But it's horses for horses, really, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Which do you like the look of best? You know, which one works to you best? You can decide. Let me know what you think. Otherwise, you know, the major difference here, apart from the color, is that there are a few small tweaks, as I already mentioned. You know, stuff like the feet is the obvious one, because they have redesigned the feet a little bit just to make them slightly simpler during transformation. And having transformed the original version just before as well, you know, I can confirm it is a bit easier for sure. Definitely, it's not quite as frustrating, let's say. Still a little bit of a, you know, it's not the most obvious bit of transformation I've ever done in my life, but definitely easier. And the one thing that I do appreciate is that they've made these little, you know, the back of the nacelles, those little kind of pins or spikes or whatever, kind of sit a lot more firmly inside the nacelles. So that for me is a big improvement. So, you know, other than just the cosmetic stuff, there are some yeah, there's some stuff going on here. It's good. But you know, surely there can be no better lineup than this, right? Like bringing in all the sweeps and you know, Cyclonus and Galvatron again, the ones from FansToys, and just standing back and appreciating it. Because, you know, as mad as it is to think that this is 4 versions of the same toy, it's still pretty wonderful, right? Like, you know, I'm not gonna deny that there isn't a bit of a thrill just seeing all of them together like that. Because if you're a fan of the '86 movie, you know, and indeed a lot of the season 3 of the original cartoon as well, then that will do it for you. Let's put it that way. Because yeah, it's marvelous. What can I say? It's definitely an indulgence, a huge indulgence. But if that's the kind of display that you want, I guess that's what you're signing up for, isn't it? And to my eye, pretty spectacular. In conclusion then, what else is there to say? Well, I think, as I've already mentioned, it is an indulgence. It is a big thing to get this entire set. You know, whether you go for the 3 of them, the 3-pack, or indeed, you know, the full suite of sweeps, including Andras, you know, it's not a small thing by any means. But the results are really there to see, and I do like how it looks. I think X-Transbots have done a great job, you know, in terms of the fit and finish. The new paint scheme does look really good. I do kind of like the more vibrant blue on the old one, as I already mentioned, but you know, it's hard not to argue with the opportunity to be able to own these guys again. Do you have room for such a thing? Would you even want the same figure 4 times over? It's a bit mad, isn't it? But if indeed you are in the market for a set of sweeps and a Scourge, you could do worse than this lot. And on that basis, for me today, it's a toot. Now, as already mentioned, this review comes courtesy of TF Source, so you will find a link to their site in the video description below, whether that's to check out these guys or just to go shopping in general and treat yourself. Why not, eh? And do leave me a like for today's video. That's always helpful. And don't forget to let me know your comments as well, your thoughts on these guys. You know, do you like what you see? Not too sure? Do you think that it's a bit mad to maybe own all 4? How are you feeling about it? Let me know. Otherwise, that's it from me. So enjoy the rest of your day, and TTFN.